Welcome, everyone. The reason that we're generally here today, we're going to talk about digital transformation. What I'd like to do is dig down a little deeper and find out from you, how does this affect your verticals, either in financial, manufacturing, retail? Basically, I want to get to the core of what does digital transformation mean to your business?
So digital transformation to our business in manufacturing would be that all our verticals within our business is on the same page in terms of information sharing. That will allow us to be more agile, be more efficient in our processes, and being able to better operate our business.
Well, I think in the financial services world, it's an interesting transformation that's happening because you have all these new technologies, these new startup companies that sort of every time you turn around, there's another new way to do a financial transaction. I mean, we're out there moving the technology forward. We've got great leading startups and entrepreneurs in the what we call fintech, financial technology space. All of the digital transformation things that are going on is probably the biggest threat and the biggest opportunity facing the industry right now.
In the fashion industry, in Toronto, we used to have a fashion district, right? Fashion and textiles is one of the oldest industries in the world. I'm really excited to be part of this conversation because I can learn more about how we can modernize an otherwise very old trade through digital transformation.
In the hospitality world, businesses are trying to make customer and guest experience better, in some cases faster if it's quick service restaurants. They're enabling new ways to pay, and they're trying to understand who their customer is. If you can start to understand your customer and know who they are, whether that's through their phone or through some sort of CRM system, you can market to them better, you can understand their needs better, you can staff better, so internally can do business functions better.
I mean, for me, it's about relationships, I think. And in the retail sector, it's really the dynamic or the relationship between the consumer, the retailer, the brand, the manufacturer, and how those relationships change and evolve as a consequence of technology. Now looking forward, the question is, what new technologies sit on the horizon? You know, if you look at virtual reality or the Internet of Things, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of this is going to be, yet again, another revolution that is going to completely change the dynamic between each of those constituents.
You know, in financial services, like right now, if you have a financial advisor, you have someone who has education, they've taken various degrees or training, professional development, but what is starting to happen is the phrase robo-advisor. So in effect, technology is going to be your advisor, and that technology through artificial intelligence and deep learning is going to know everything about every financial transaction, every recession, depression, growth, business cycle that's happened in the history of humanity.
We have all of this access. The question is, what do we do with it? And that's where, you know, to Janet's point, this idea of machine learning and AI and the ability to potentially not just know what's going on or what a financial situation looks like, but actually know you better than you know yourself. You know, that potential is extremely compelling in this world where we have so much choice.
It's only really recently that these disruptors in other industries have started to take data that didn't really exist before and do something new with it. And those are the companies that are disrupting really old legacy industries with new ideas and new experiences and new products, usually based on something that nobody knew before.
We're talking a lot about data, a lot about people's information. What are we doing in your specific cases about securing it?
Security is probably one of the biggest issues that keeps CEOs awake at night in the financial services world, not only because of, you know, just protecting consumers' data, protecting your privacy, but also for the whole system.
I think what companies are starting to realize is that ultimately how they treat that data is a competitive advantage or disadvantage. My personal belief is that it operates in an equilibrium. I think that as consumers, we understand that our data is currency, and we're willing to spend that currency with companies that give us value in return.
For the financial industry, it has meant increased investment in both people and technology, both in terms of the security of our financial system the security of an individual company, but also the privacy of that information that you have entrusted to that financial institution. So the good news is they're doing it. The bad news is the bad guys are getting better every day. So it's going to be a constant challenge, I think.
So Janet mentioned two things, maybe that I'd like for you guys all to chime in on: people and technology. Would you rank those? Are they equal, or would you put one over the other?
For us and in our industry, at least what my business is about, we'd still rank people number one. Technology can put parameters on how individuals operate. However, there is within every function still that person that is going to fill in that blank to some degree. As much as I love digital, I think one of the things we forget is the human element of it all, which is what's driving it.
I totally agree, and I think there's a beauty to both. The beauty of technology, the beauty of computers is the degree to which they are capable of linear thinking. So I mean, you can put a million problems back to back in front of a computer and it'll saw through those million problems like that. What computers aren't good at, though, however, is being creative.
Well, and that's the interesting
parameters.
question, because when you look at the potential with artificial intelligence, there are those that would argue that they are getting to that point. So there's a big social issue here when we look at that digital transformation, and how do we help our populations through it?
Okay, so who among you at your companies have started the digital transformation process as you see it? Yeah?
We have.
Yeah? And now, are you guys doing that internally, or are you using consultants for this, or do you have a special department that you've built at your companies? How is that going?
I'd say all of the above.
Yeah?
It depends very much. Some you do in-house, some you need the expertise of companies like a Cisco or some of the other consulting and support services to give you advice. The other important way that companies are coming at it in the financial world is through partnerships.
It's easy to hire a consultant, buy a platform,
Yes.
have an agency
Yes.
do work, but internally, if everyone isn't bought in,
Yes.
bottom up and top down, then it goes very slowly. So
super
culture
on
is
board with
critical.
Yeah, I'm super on board. I mean, as an internal technology, if it's not accepted by everyone, we're not able to move it. It's even though it's technology and it's linear in the process, you still need the individuals involved. And if they're not engaged, they're not involved, they're not going to adapt to it. In our particular situation, we're going into, our second version of an ERP system. So our ERP currently right now works. But I think that in order for us to scale and to look forward in terms of strategy and our growth, then we need to make it better. So right now, how we're doing it is very much involved with all our key managers that are within their business functions, and they're very much engaged. So as we're designing different modules, we're saying this is currently what's happening, so they're familiar. Because adaptability is a big part of putting in new systems and technology, right? If they're scared of it, they're not going to touch it.
I always advise clients, whether they're retailers or brands, if they're sitting down looking at technology, I say start from the experience and work backwards to the
Yes,
technology.
yes.
Ultimately, whether you're B2B,
Yeah.
whether you're government, whether you're financial, hospitality, it doesn't matter. You have a customer. You have to map out that customer journey, find the moments of truth, find the opportunity within those moments to either remove friction or add delight, and technology will be a piece of that.
I've heard a lot of you talk about consumers and customers. Are your internal customers or your employees prepared for the digital transformation?
Well, I think that is one of the big challenges for all employers, but certainly in the financial services world, there's been a lot of investment in training people and in helping people to adapt and get into the new technology. Because if you can get that right, you've got a shot at that technology working.
So I think in terms of our business, they've adopted the idea of technology coming into our business because the way we've positioned it, and the truth of the matter is, it's going to alleviate, maybe some of the workload. So it's how you approach it and how you're selling it internally. As an example, every Friday we do a hashtag Factory Friday across all of our social media platforms. Well, that is our message to the external, which is this is what's happening inside our factory. So you can use technology, internal and external, even from a culture perspective.
I want to pull out the crystal ball. I want to ask you guys, if we were going to do this again in, say, 18 months, Where do you see that going? Like, are you guys chatting with a robot version of me in 18 months, or what are we talking about?
Crystal ball, I think we're on our way to that Star Trek-like future, right? And I think we're not necessarily 18 months from now going to be there, but we're on our way there.
I think from a consumer standpoint, we're going to see a greater penetration of the digital assistant in the home. I think the Internet of Things, the idea that our appliances, our cars, even our clothing potentially, will be connected and intelligent and making decisions perhaps on our behalf as to the things we buy and choose. And on the enterprise side, I think we're going to see massive, massive investments in back-end infrastructure that's going to help speed the supply chain, add dexterity to bringing products to market, and personalizing experiences for consumers.
I agree in that degree, where I do find that in general a lot of the digitization has been on the consumer front, that we're not looking at the supply chain front. Because the supply chain where I think is where digitization has such a huge potential and we can really catch up.
I think we're going to see more and more from a transformation point of view of companies either completely going out of business or changing how they do business fundamentally. I think that's going to be key, and it will come down to things like supply chain. Like, you can't run a great e-commerce business
Without the supply
if you
chain.
haven't figured out supply chain. So.
Yeah, well, I look at the private label brands that we produce for, there's a number of them that they're a direct-to-consumer brand.
Yeah.
So they don't even have bricks and mortars.
Yeah. That seems to be the wave anyway, right? Like, it sounds like that's where we're headed.
Yes and no, because I think it's also understanding you as a brand, understanding who your audience is, using the data and determining who your audience is and elevating that experience for them. As much as we're seeing stores shutting down, there are also investments in brick and mortar stores where it's becoming a user experience. You're going to walk into a retail environment and these are the experience I'm having. It becomes more of a destination, more of an experience, as opposed to going there to buy. You may be going there to build that brand loyalty and then buy the products online.
The store, the physical store, is actually becoming media now. That it's not a form of distribution of products anymore, it's a form of distribution of experiences.
And even in the financial industry, I mean, people said, oh, it was going to be the end of branches, and there's no question there are fewer branches, but they are now turning into more of an experience. You go in and, whether it's the green leather chair or the person that's standing there saying, hi, how can I help you? Here's a cup of coffee. It's all about that experience. And so I think, again, getting back to that focus on the customer. What is it they want, and how do we provide it to them?
I think what we also really have to consider is, especially through this digital transformation age, is the Gen Zs.
Yes.
Because they've really, really grown up with it. They don't know otherwise.
No, that's
right? So they're really the driving force and driving a lot of traditional businesses and legacy businesses to look way beyond the current if they want to continue their legacy.
And 18 months from now, who knows? It's whatever it is, it's going to be different, faster, and it's probably something that none of us ever thought of today.
Well, here's what I suggest. What do you say we all do this again in 18 months?
Absolutely.
All right, great. Well, I want to thank you all for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us. Exceeded all of my wildest expectations. So thanks again.
Do we have a date in the 18 months?
Should we put it on our calendar?
Yeah, well. Yeah, I'm good that day.